Okay, this video is very important. Please subscribe. You're insane if you do not hear me out. This is extremely important. This video is about the shooting in Wayne, Michigan, and how it connects to John Wayne Gacy, the clown. I'm sure you've all noticed that people on the news, people in the government have been acting like clowns. They've been acting like a satanic psycho circus, what have you. So let's explain why. It has to do with the word magic. The word magic is a play on words for I'm. The second word is gay. And then C. The letter C for seeing things, right? Gacy, how you see things. Those who play the game, right? The word game is the word mage scramble, are mentally ill, and they see things like an LGBT person. Think about a gay parade. If you think about the most professional LGBT person you've ever seen in your life, you'll be a bit confused. But if you think about the essence of what it means to be gay, you'll understand. No offense to the LGBT community, but when I looked it up in the Urban Dictionary and I have a video showing the definition, it said that gay means stupid and pointless. Like a skater saying, dude, that's gay. People who are gay are often nerdy and nerd-like, right? They're considered quote-unquote queer, which means odd, foolish and contemptible. Bear with me. You'll see that there's very important points here. Bear with me. First, we need to establish that LGBT people are mentally ill on the spectrum, as are the vast majority of straight people, but mental health is run by crazies. We'll get to that. So the generational transformation of people who put survival before moral precision is what is going on. Babylon is a play on words for baby lion. Rothschild, child. Point number one. People who do not want people to live in reality are sick, and they should be stopped, right? These people are sick and insane, and they should be stopped. Gaslighting makes them more disgusting, not less. So if you had Gacy and the Night Stalker, okay, and Jeffrey Dahmer on one side, and you had me on the other, and they were arguing that from their point of view, that the most righteous person that ever lived is crazy, and that they're not, who would you believe and why? Right? They're gaslighting. It's called gayslighting. Now, which gay? And what kind of person would organize gays to abuse people, to child traffic, to rape people in the Boy Scouts, the churches, work with prisoners who lost their minds and started raping people in prison? What kind of person would do that? A serial killer. So the game is run by people who are like the Riddler and the Joker. They have this kind of crazy gay way about them. And they often wear suits, and they're seething with Luciferian energy. We see the word ver in virtue means man. We see that there's a difference between someone's behavior and their race. We'll get to how discipline factors in shortly. The word discipline is extremely important. Extremely, extremely important. Write down the word discipline. And write down ver in virtue means man, versus being a baby that never grew up. But we have to also understand that white supremacy is a mistake, that Jewish supremacy is a mistake, and that LGBT supremacy is a mistake. White people are not more evolved, and they're not superior. I've been discussing this with white people for about 3 decades or so, a little over 3 decades, and they have no counter-argument still. I'm part black and I'm part white, and part Jewish, just ever so slightly part Jewish, and I'm not racist. I can tell you with certainty that white people are not more evolved. What happens when you evolve? You become perfected. You don't become like Einstein or George Bush, okay? You become a perfected, graceful, and wise person. If white people are more evolved, then what were other races doing while white people were evolving? They were evolving in different environments. And Africa was the bell that rings the loudest. It's the native environment for all human beings, so they spent the longest time evolving there. But that by itself doesn't definitively prove anything. But what does is that they had the most competitive hand-to-hand combat systems for the longest time. What does that do? It forces you to think. Think about the difference between a soldier, okay, an elite soldier, and a sorority female, or a gay person in a frat, or a straight person in a frat who acts gayish, which is all frats, all college frats, right? They're like gay-like societies. If you have an elite military force, right, you'd expect them to evolve better over time than a bunch of people in a frat. Now, white people were spread out all over Europe in small groups, where Africans were concentrated in Northeast Africa, and eventually in West Africa more than Northeast Africa. So these places became pressure cookers for mind, body, soul, and spirit. It's even called spirit, to spear something. So white people are not superior to other people, especially not black people. I'm not going to go into it more than that, because I'm just trying to prove my point here. I'm not a racial supremacist. I'm a moral supremacist. I happen to know that when you're hybrid for the right reasons, you go beyond any one race type of person. But that's not the point of this video. Okay. Where are we here? Point number 2. In life, all responsible adults do the right thing even when they don't want to. This is very key. In life, all responsible adults, all people who have actually grown up to be worthwhile people, living worthwhile lives and having meaningful lives, they do the right thing even when they don't want to. And I'm urging the LGBT community, as someone who's trying to help you more than anyone has ever lived, okay, to at least consider the possibility that homosexuality and lesbianism and LGBT behavior reflects mental illness. At least consider that homosexuality might be a mental illness, and it might be something you should scramble to fix. Okay. So think about the difference between being a child giggling and being a man. Is a gay parade like a geek or a child giggling when they're giggling? Or is it more like a man who's mature with mental clarity and with masculinity intact? Because masculinity, right, connects to testosterone, it connects to various things. You don't have to have high testosterone levels to be a man, but it certainly makes it easier. Okay. Point number 3, all sinners, including the LGBT community, have no viable counter-argument to these proverbs. Proverbs 10:17, whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, while whoever ignores correction leads others astray. Whoever heeds discipline shows the way to life, the way to a meaningful life, a righteous life, a just life. Whoever ignores correction leads others astray, leads them alpha stray, being a heterosexual alpha in the divine order, which is a Royal African Falcon martial art order for the reasons I've talked about earlier. I happen to be the top martial artist ever possible on this planet, with all these cultures that are acting very silly. Some of these guys lift weights and all kinds of muscle, but they refuse to rally and obey God through me when they have no viable counter-argument for the fact that it's right. It means they never grew up. Whether you're in the special forces or you're the strongest person in the world or whatever, doesn't matter. What matters is if you obey God through me or not. We'll get to that. So they have no viable counter-argument for any of these proverbs, which are universal. You don't have to believe in God to know that these proverbs are correct. Proverbs 12:1. Whoever loves life loves knowledge, but whoever hates correction is stupid. My notes are a little confusing here, but that what I just said is true either way. So whoever loves life loves knowledge, but whoever hates correction is stupid. Proverbs 13:18. Whoever disregards discipline comes to poverty and shame, but whoever heeds correction is honored. In Matthew 6, you see it says, store riches in heaven and not on earth. It's talking about poverty in regards to not having moral wealth, spiritual wealth, not mere money. So if you hate correction, if you hate this video, you're stupid. Proverbs 12:1. Proverbs 13:18. If you disregard the discipline that comes from knowing I'm right about this and following suit, not in terms of following some rich oppressor, but in terms of doing the right thing. you disregard discipline, you come to poverty and shame. So to pretend that I'm wrong is to be stupid and to be disgraced and to be morally bankrupt. But whoever heeds correction is honored. Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline. So you should be disciplining them with these principles and raising them right. We'll talk about how we can solve the problem of the homosexual state of mind, of LGBT states of mind, in a minute here. Okay, it has to do with breaking into groups based on the severity of the difficulty, how hard it is for them to change. Okay, some gays argue things like, they've tried and tried. No, some of them have tried and they have changed. So stop lying. Stop lying because you're fixated on sexual behavior like a rapist or a child molester. Stop lying because you want to put your sexual habits before what's right. That's sick. That is sick. That is shameful. That is stupid. That's foolish. Proverbs 15:5. A fool spurns a parent's discipline, but whoever heeds correction shows prudence, right? Shows diligence. So if you reject this discipline, you're a fool, and you're stupid, and you're shameful, and you're morally bankrupt. They have no counterargument. You'll see by the time we're done here, we'll have far overkilled the fact that it must be a mental illness that they have. Proverbs 15:32. Those who disregard discipline despise themselves. But the one who heeds correction gains understanding. The one who heeds correction gains understanding. So when they refuse to be disciplined enough to accept the things I'm saying are true and to follow suit, they despise themselves. Now, if you're teaching your friends and your family to have the same philosophy and mentality that you have, you're despising them too, and you're teaching them to despise themselves. And you're teaching them to be stupid, to be disgraced, to be morally bankrupt, to be foolish, to raise their children wrong. And keep in mind, when you have no viable counterargument, can you just say, well, I feel a certain way about it, and I just don't want to do it? No. That's what's called being undisciplined and ignoble and evil. Evil people refuse to do what's right because they don't have moral discipline. That is extremely important to understand, extremely important. That's what the whole Bible is about. Point number 4 now. That was a long point number 3 where I argue that they have no viable counterarguments to Proverbs 12:1, 13:18, 13:24, 15:5, and 15:32. Now, point number 4. Even straight people can combat heterosexual thoughts, so why wouldn't gay people be able to combat gay thoughts? Are they severely mentally ill? Then that is more reason to treat it as a mental illness. So if their argument is that the vast majority of straight people, if not all of them, can combat, unless they're mentally ill, mind you, they can combat perverted thoughts. If I see a hot chick walking around dressing, showing her tits, I can look the other way and think about something else and say, look, I'm not going to think about that because say if I was married, because I'm married. How many married men all the time reject perverted thoughts trying to honor their marriage? Pretty straightforward. I'd love to hear your counterargument to this. I'm not trying to scare the LGBT community away. I don't want people to beat them up for no reason. Okay? I want people to think about what I'm saying and to put in the comments and to honor my First Amendment right and to realize they're suppressing my videos, so I have to scramble to come up with ways to try to get the videos out. And it's very difficult. I have bumper stickers. I make videos in public. It's very difficult. I spent $2,000 going on trips with the rental cars because they sabotage my cars. Okay, and it goes back to gang stalking, which starts with GA, which goes back to the gay. Like in game. Gay and G stalking. The G in Freemasonry, GE is the Roman earth deity. And that's not a coincidence that the Bible says Satan is the god of this world. Point number 5. Everyone knows that gays have a certain look in their eyes quite often that is odd or quote-unquote queer. Okay, think about when someone's high, we can often see it in their eyes, right? If not always. When someone's drunk, we can often see it in their eyes, if not always. When someone's on cocaine, when somebody's really angry, Okay, they say the eyes are the window to the soul. So why do they have a weird look in their eyes that reflects being thrown off so often? Now, some of them do a kind of gay magic, if you will, magic tricks, a gay occult philosophy, and they, think about how a magician who does magic tricks is dressed, and think about how people dress in corporations and lawyers, right? That's a whole other story for another day, how the Western system is based on a cult system. In fact, the English Parliament used to be known as the Wit and Gamut. Look it up. A bunch of quote-unquote wizards and occultists. When someone's good at math, they're called a math wizard. And Freemasons, okay, who's funded the Scottish Rite, who funded the Scottish Rite Freemasons funded MK Ultra, which is called Ram Scramble. Okay, on record. A psychiatrist named Dr. Colin Ross wrote a book about it where he reviewed the 15,000 documents of MK Ultra that were available from the Freedom of Information Act, and he found that the Scottish Rite funded, they partially funded MK Ultra because they're interested in magic tricks, mind control, what have you. And you see the brain hacking, the artificial intelligence these days, and how many Freemasons are involved in that. It overkills my point. They're not the only ones doing it, but they are perhaps the main ones doing it. They're up there somewhere. Okay. So are the churches and so on and so forth. Okay, so where was I here? Point number 6. Okay, so I'd like to highlight the movie Training Day right now. Okay, brace yourself. I'm going to have to make a slightly disgusting to a very disgusting example. Okay, in the movie Training Day, I'm just going through this quickly. It doesn't bring me any pleasure to bring this up, but this is part of the diagnosis, is the symptoms, which include the sexual behavior. So in the movie Training Day, they talk about how a guy, got released or, pleaded criminally insane to a crime that he wasn't insane when he committed, because he packed his behind full of peanut butter and put it on his finger right during the court case and licked it clean, looking the judge in the eyes. And the judge said he's crazy. Now why? Because he said if somebody does something similar to tossing salad or sucking the shit off a dick, that they're fucking crazy. This is something gays do all the fucking time. So many of them. And there's a thin line between sucking a guy's dick and sucking a guy's dick after he fucked you in the fucking ass. Okay? No offense to anybody, but this has to be said. Straight people who do disgusting sexual acts are also mentally ill. But the only sexual acts of homosexuals and lesbians are disgusting sexual acts. No offense to anybody. This has to be said. I'd love to discuss it with you in the comments. At the same time, it's disgusting as hell. But I know that you people need to understand that. That is a huge part of it. A huge part of being gay is the type of sex they have, which makes it crystal clear that they're mentally ill. Dicks go into vaginas to reproduce children. That's why we have that sex drive. Yes, we see various defects in nature. Sometimes animals are born lame. Sometimes people are born with Siamese twins. Sometimes they're born, with developmental disorders. There's all kinds of defects in nature. And there's no reason to believe that the fact that other life forms have defects as well, and they often are homosexual, proves that it's a good thing or something. There's no reason to believe that. None. If you think I'm wrong, put in the comments, please. Okay. No really compelling reason. So where we're here. Point number 7. Gays often incite violence against gays. Now, how do they do that? Well, if you catfish somebody, it makes someone want to beat the hell out of or kill a homosexual. And again, people should think very carefully before they beat up anybody or kill anybody. Is it right? Is it just? Is it really, really the right thing to do? But the point is, they make people want to kill them. Now, some of you might argue, no, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. Okay. I challenge you to look up the homicide rate in San Francisco, in Oakland, in Baltimore, in St. Louis, in Dallas, believe it or not, there's a bunch of homosexuals. In Houston, believe it or not, there's a bunch of homosexuals. Look up the highest homicide rates in this country. There's cities that are disproportionately gay historically, and when they go to the prison system, they come out and become gay, it exacerbates the problem. When people don't think straight, they think gay is as the story goes. Again, no offense to anybody. Some of the most violent inmates are homosexuals. How violent do you have to be to rape a murderer? Okay? In your prison cell. Just sheer gay animosity. Point number 8. The gay community has proliferated drastically in recent years because there's a lot of chaos. Because they're disproportionately in the tech sector, and IT is the most profitable industry. And in capitalism, you see rich people preying on poor people and sexually harass them, like guys sexually harass women in the workplace. There are tons of straight people who sexually harass people, who turn them out, who rape them, but gays disproportionately do so, and they disproportionately sexually abuse children. If 1 in 6 boys are sexually molested before the age of 18, and disproportionately by males, and 1 in 4 girls, and gays, when I cited these numbers in the study, back then they were only said to be 2 to 5% of the population. Yet 1 in 6 boys are disproportionately molested before the age of 18, and only 1 in 4 girls. So they're disproportionately molested by gays. 1 in 6 boys are disproportionately molested by gays. Now, even right now, they're fuming me. The word gas is like the word gays. Fume, F you me, and you F me. Now, who would say that to who and why? Well, who fixates the most as a group? They're not the only ones doing it, but they're disproportionately doing it, and it's called a game for a reason, which goes back to Greece and Rome, which had high rates of homosexuality, and they had a bunch of gays in their government running things so much that it was common for gay guys to bring chocolates and flowers to young boys, and, the government was made up of these gay guys and the young boys they mentored and turned out. Look up pederasty. Athenian pederasty, Cretan pederasty, Greek pederasty. Look it up. You'll see that I'm right. And this practice continues to this day. Choir boys, Boy Scouts, you name it. And look at the kind of Boy Scout way. See Marco Rubio. I'm not saying he was molested for sure. I don't know. But he has that look. That look continues, and so does a lot of this child molestation. It continues, and there's a bunch of secret societies and social clubs with a bunch of guys with a kind of gayish look in their eyes everywhere you look. What the hell do you call that? Again, this video is not about insulting the LGBT community. If you think it's unfair, put in the comments. If you can prove definitively that this video is just insulting and not helpful, then I'll gladly take it down. I'm a moral supremacist, not someone who just insults people. That's stupid. I'm not a bully. Okay. Okay, so we went over the major cities. Point number 10. They play stupid about Chinese and child sex change. When's the last time you saw a bunch of gays make a bunch of videos and get a bunch of gays to help them where they speak out against child sex changes? Why is it straight people? Because they're playing the game that has caused homosexuality to proliferate in this country? Granted, it's aimed mostly at people of color, but it still is on the rise. And churches, especially conservative churches, have a long history of gays raping children. In fact, long ago, almost all churches could probably best be described as conservative. And they were raping children left and right. Look at the history of child rape in both Protestant and Catholic churches. Some Protestant organizations rape children so much, people think of them as raping children more than Catholics, kind of thing. Jehovah's Witnesses. The Amish are said to be very suspicious. The church, the Latter-day Saints, what have you. Okay. Where are we here? Of course, you had the Klan, which was a Protestant organization, where you had the Grand Wizard, right? Wizard, game, and mage. Image, I mage, I game. The Grand Wizard and the Grand Dragon, why they're playing an image game to feign white and Jewish supremacy and LGBT supremacy. If you think I'm wrong, put in the comments. Anytime you think I'm wrong ever, put in the comments. Let's talk about this. Not only do I have an open mind within reason, I'm fair, but I demand that anyone who disagrees puts in the comments. Quit being a bitch. Quit cowering in the face of controversy and put in the comments. Okay. Point number 11. The last time I checked the satanic LGBT community's Facebook page, it was very, very popular. And they put on it that to be gay and to try to be a Christian is like being black and trying to be in the Klan, right? They're saying it's incompatible. Okay. Now this is key here. This will connect to other points. Point number 12. They expect people to play stupid about satanic LGBT expression. That is like playing stupid about someone who looks like a typical metalhead. Okay? If you saw someone who looks like a typical metalhead and someone next to you said, hey, that guy is a metalhead, would you say, fuck you talking about? How do you know that? Or would you say, well, duh? And so it is with satanic LGBT expression. It's one thing to be wrong about something once in a long time. If on a fluke that guy wasn't actually a metalhead, you say, well, who could blame the guy for thinking he's a metalhead and saying it? And responding like that person's a metalhead. There's a difference between being wrong on a fluke once in a trillion times or something, and being wrong to a large degree. Okay. Point number 13. They also expect people to play stupid about toxic behavior being satanic, right? Satanism is not a good thing. It's not a matter of, oh, he just happens to be a Satanist. Satanists have historically molested children. They've sacrificed children. They've been caught covering up satanic ritual abuse. They covered it up and pretended it was a ritual abuse scare. Then countless other cases arose. In countless cases, they were not acknowledged as ritual abuse. Look at the Aryan Brotherhood, right? The Aryan Brotherhood is an alliance historically of Irish bikers, so they have the four-leaf clover, of neo-Nazis, so they have the swastika to pay homage to their original members, and of Satanists, so they have 666. Now, logic would tell you that criminals are in prison for more than one reason, right? Raping kids, raping people. I'm not sure how many other Aryan Brotherhood members, if any, rape children, but certainly people in satanic networks include people that rape children. Some bikers have been caught raping children somewhere, somehow. Doesn't mean they're allowed into the Aryan Brotherhood. They're probably not. Okay? And so it is with neo-Nazis. Some of them have probably been caught raping children. You see what I'm saying? So in the satanic community, they have been caught doing all kinds of horrible things so often that perhaps the most feared white prison gang on the planet, its original members were Satanists. There was a bunch of them. So if you have somebody telling you that they think that satanic ritual abuse isn't real, tell them about the Aryan Brotherhood and tell them to shut the fuck up. I also don't think it's a coincidence that the largest biker gang in America is called the Hells Angels. They're not called the Church's Angels, they're called the Hells Angels. Just because all the churches are satanic doesn't mean that Satanism isn't a problem. It is. And they like to pretend they're Christians. Satan likes to parade like an angel of light, is what the Bible says. He likes to try to pass himself off as an angel of light. And what else do they do? Satanists are notorious for being racist. Look at the Klan. The Grand Dragon. The dragon in the Bible is the devil. It's in Revelation. Also the snake in the garden. The snake is a variation of a dragon. In fact, these things are so connected, the archaic word for snake is worm. Worm. And the word worm is like the word word for a reason. Just like the word God to the Satanists is the word dog spelled backwards. They made that word that way on purpose. So you see narcissism, racial supremacy, cultural imperialism, unfairly enforcing evil cultures on people, scoffing, mocking, okay, selfishness, rape, murder, Luciferian energy, evil sarcasm, drugging, poisoning, and pharmakeia means witchcraft, poisoning, insincerity, scatterbrain thinking, on and on and on, recklessness. These are satanic traits. When someone says they're a Satanist, they're condoning sin. Whether they're an atheistic Satanist swearing up and down, that's not what it's about. That's what they're condoning. When you dress up to mimic sin, and the vast majority of people are ignorant to what your culture is, you are still promoting sin. It's like having a bumper sticker that says MAGA on it and nothing else, and you argue that, no, that's not what it's about. No, that's what you're communicating, thus you're promoting it, you stupid fuck. Like, I gotta explain this. Point number 14. They purposely dumb people down, okay, and they ask unnecessarily confusing questions. For example, if I was to say, Dahmer and Night Stalker and Gacy are gays who prove my point. Well, they might say, well, how do you know they're guilty? You say, well, they confessed eventually, some of these guys, whatever. Well, how do you know that confession is real? Okay? These questions are like deeper philosophical questions or something. Because when you look at the context of the argument, when you look at the argument in its entirety, is the answer to start questioning if those guys were actually fucking serial killers? Did Gacy see all those dead bodies at his house? Maybe he was framed. But is that the answer here? Because what they're suggesting when they ask that question, why would you ask that question if not to waste time and try to confuse people and cause people to lose their train of thought? You're training them to fail instead of to solve the problem when you cause them to lose their train of thought. Is the answer to pretend that there's no gay serial killers? They act like Dahmer or Gacy and the Night Stalker? That is fucking retarded. You see what I'm saying? So I have to take my time to say all this stuff and say, hey, we'll just assume. Well, you're just assuming that. You see what I'm saying? That's very typical of the LGBT community. Very typical. And it's so typical, a lot of you, like me, thought of it as a gay thing before you thought of it as a satanic thing. Because LGBT Satanism and LGBT popular cultures are nearly identical. In fact, it's the same thing. Because they know homosexuality is a sin in the Bible, Leviticus, and Romans. And Christ quotes the Old Testament and said he came to fulfill the law, not to destroy the law. And he says outside the gates are the sexually immoral, which overkills that the golden rule and the greatest commandment also include obeying God's command to not be sexually immoral, which includes LGBT sex, which is described as being a sin because it's unnatural. Open and shut. For number 15, gay parades make it clear that I'm right. Now, if we look at people, who refuse to admit that I'm right, they're being stiff-necked, stubborn, reluctant, rebellious. They fixate on things. They don't want to give over their fixation. Again, I'm not trying to bash the LGBT community, but I'm trying to help you see what you need to do. Just like if I was teaching martial arts, I'm not trying to bash the white belt. I'm trying to help him progress in life and purge himself of his mistakes. We have a society that judges based on the content of the character, like Martin Luther King said, or was he killed, thus overkilling his point? His point that seems to go over their heads. The colonial races, the whites, the Jews, the LGBT, the token minorities, they can never be seen in reality as superior by sane people because of the things I've discussed in this video and the fact that they're not superior. They lost the martial art competition, the race to the master martial artist. The die is cast. Tech, breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains mean they can never one-up. On top of that, Asians outperform them in school, in America, in their own Western system, in their own language. We don't see white people in China outperforming Asians. We see Asians in America and in the West outperforming white people and Jews. And tech, breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains has also overkilled that. We also see Nigerians as a group in America one-upping them. In fact, one-upping Asians, at least at one point, even as the most stigmatized race and the people who are the least related to white people, basically. Because Eurasia, right? Europe is right by Asia, so they're more related to Asians. And Hispanic people and so-called Native Americans, right? Because they're mixed to some degree, so it's what exactly do you call them? No offense to them. They are quite often mixed with white. So as a group, black people are the least related to white people, which means their system is their education system and their language is the most foreign to them. Yet Nigerians as a group, at least in one point in American history, showed up every single other group academically. I myself, my father is a brain surgeon, came here penniless, worked his way up, went to Detroit when it was the murder capital. His brother, who passed away, graduated top of his class at Santa Clara University, I think also at UC Berkeley Law School, and became a lawyer. And his other brother is a doctor as well. Very typical of Nigerian families. So as we see that white people, the pink color, because it has to do with white people when they turn colors when they're giggling and acting goofy, right? Pinky, The Pink Panther, we think of white people, right? It's a white kind of spirit that they're showing animation, right? Animus means spirit. Okay, and I'm not insulting white people. I'm part white. I'm not racist. I'm a moral supremacist, not a racial supremacist. I was engaged to a white woman. At one point, she was part Greek, part Italian. Anyway, so the reason why gays and feminists choose the color pink is because white people had a gender-neutral culture, an LGBT culture in Greece and Rome. Thus, Hermaphroditus, Hermes, a male deity who's kind of gayish, and Aphrodite merged together, where you get Hermaphroditus, where we get the word hermaphrodite. Eros being portrayed as a kid, Cupid as a kid, because their conceptions of love are childish, like gay people acting childish at a gay parade. If you don't know this video is important, you are a fucking idiot. But even though you might be an idiot, let me help you not be an idiot. There's such a thing as an idiot no longer being an idiot. So put in the comments if you think that this video is important. If you think it's too insulting, put in the comments. Let's address it. Let's work together for the common good. Okay? I've chastised every kind of group that you can imagine. Black people, straight people, gay people, you name it. Martial artists, people in the military, people in the police. I get targeted. They feel me more quite often when I bring up some certain groups.